want to thank the Alumni Society for this opportunity to share my story. Thank you to Pedro, Vianney, and Jill for having the vision and doing the work to connect such amazingly talented Latino leaders from across the country. The topic is adaptability, and when I started to think about these remarks, I kept thinking that this is just a trait that comes standard in the recipe for the making of an immigrant. After all, my parents, and I'm sure all of your parents, had to adapt and roll with the punches of living in this country. My dad has a degree in agriculture, and when he came to the US, worked as a dairy farmer before now working in construction. My mom has a degree in English, and when she migrated, she became a nanny and now cleans houses. My grandfather went from being the general manager of an auto dealership to working at a recycling plant. So let me share my immigrant story because from day one, this is a trait that is ingrained in all of us. Let me set the stage for you. August 8th, 1993. I was 7 years old. My grandfather took me to the Mexico City airport. I was wearing the best dress I owned. I had the shiny white shoes, the charol, with the lace socks. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. My grandfather dropped me off at the gate, and en el otro lado, my mom was going to pick me up. We took off, and 45 minutes into the flight, we turned right back around to Mexico City. The plane had a malfunction. So we all file back into the waiting area, and here I am, 7 years old, by myself. By this time, my grandfather had gone back to our little town, not like there were any cell phones back then to let anyone know what was happening. So this is exactly the situation where teaching kids don't talk to strangers didn't quite work, because after some time, your girl was getting hungry. And in a scene straight out of a telenovela, this tall, skinny, blonde woman with her shorter, larger, balder husband approached me and tried to speak to me in English. I remember the fear that I had in my belly of telling them that I was alone. But to this day, I have no idea what they said to me or what I said to them, but I got a hot dog and a Coca-Cola out of it. And when we finally made it, you can imagine my mother's stress and horror after not hearing from us for hours if I'd made it back on the plane. But sure enough, it wasn't long before immigration called her over the airport loudspeaker to come and see them. Now, I like to think that I was a shy, quiet kid, but my mom tells me otherwise because apparently I told the immigration officers that on my student visa, mind you, I was gonna come live here forever. I was gonna go to school and make friends and go to Disney and go to McDonald's. My mother was mortified that they were about to put me right back on that plane to Mexico. And once she told them that I was just a kid, I was here to visit for a few weeks, that 7-year-old's goals all eventually came true, starting with McDonald's, where my parents immediately took me, and my stepdad, I will never forget, as soon as I was done with my Happy Meal, asked, "Can we send you back now?" But at the end of it, and unbeknownst to me at the time, the student visa eventually expired and I became undocumented. One morning, my mom walked into my room to wake me up like she did every morning. This time, she was somber and sad. I could tell she'd been crying, and when she broke the news that my great-grandmother had died, I asked if we were going to go to the funeral. That's when she explained to me that if I ever went back to Mexico, I could never come back to the US. That fear has defined so many of our stories. The thought that we could lose everything with one wrong move, shapes us. And in our formative years, we forego opportunities. We hide. We make up excuses for why we can't do things. I missed many school field trips because I couldn't travel. But you adapt to that fear. You absorb it. It becomes part of you, knowing that your family could get separated with one broken taillight. My parents spent so much time and so much money with lawyer after lawyer. But eventually, in the year 2000, without any fanfare, I got a stamp on my passport and I became a legal permanent resident. And shortly thereafter, I got my first blue American passport in the mail. I recognize how incredibly lucky and privileged I am when there are almost 1 million DACA recipients and millions more undocumented. But my world opened up and it became clear that I could have goals and that I could achieve them. The American dream became possible. I set out to get an education, to have a career, to get married, and to buy a home. And at 28 years old, after getting a full scholarship and graduating from an elite institution that we all know was not designed for people who look like me or come from my background, after surviving a stressful, hostile, and abusive work environment, after meeting and marrying the best person I know, and after navigating the complex mountain of barriers that women and people of color face to buying their first home, I realized that every dream and goal I'd had at 14 and every dream my parents had had for me, I'd just achieved. ¿Y ahora qué? What was next? Time to adapt again. I had to take a step back and reassess how I wanted to spend my life and where my energy could be most useful. I had spent years mentoring young women, helping, pulling others up because I truly believe that that's how we all succeed. I wanted to make sure that the difficulties and barriers I'd faced, that other Latinas would have someone to help them through it, to help edit college essays, to revise resumes and cover letters, to make connections where their parents couldn't, because neither could mine. And I've spent years working in higher education to expand opportunities for Latinos because I didn't realize how rare my story was. But all of that was not enough. Through the pandemic, I saw the suffering. I saw the gaps. I saw how our parents and tios and neighbors were all of a sudden essential, but only essential when our society needs something from them, not when it comes time to help them get access to healthcare, get access to support for their businesses that were shuttered, get help paying the rent and the mortgage so that they don't have to blow their life savings, get tutoring for our kids who don't have parents that can work remote jobs to help them get through school, to get help for the many students that had to drop out of college to help their parents through the pandemic, to get help for the many who lost parents, tias, and grandparents, just like I did. And through my own experience and the experience of my family, I saw an opening, not just to help one person at a time, but to help be the voice for the 250,000 people who live in my community, 80% of whom are Latino. I found not just a goal, but I found my purpose. I'm Dulce Vasquez, and I'm running for Los Angeles City Council to uplift my community and to keep sharing my story, because it's the same story that keeps repeating itself, and we need to break that cycle. I'm running to make Los Angeles livable and equitable. I'm running to uplift our stories of love and devotion, resilience and adaptability. I'm running because we belong at the table. I'm running because we have to dream bigger, together, of an inclusive society that values and appreciates us. I'm running, and every single person listening to this should be considering running too. Gracias.